This episode is brought to you by Mortgage Workflow Partners and the Mastering Encompass series, both for users as well as administrators. You can find out all the information about it over at masteringencompass.com. Also, if you'd like to check out what we're doing on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe to the channel using the @MasteringEncompass handle. And make sure you stay up to date on all the information, not just with podcasts, but also video content that we bring to you as often as possible. Now let's get on to the episode.
And we're live. Hey, everyone. Larry Bailey here at Mortgage Workflow Partners. I apologize for my voice. I've been talking quite a lot. So it's a good way to start, right? Hey, today is July 6th. Hopefully everybody made it back safe and sound from July 4th. The way that I'm just going to go on mute for just a second. See if that helps. So the way that this format's going to work is it's more of a webcast kind of a thing. And if you want to come on stage, you can come on stage if you have something to share. So for those that are watching this replay, you need to hop over to masteringencompass.com, or you need to get over to mortgage.community. Both will get you to the same place. We're doing these things Tuesdays and Thursdays, Tuesdays at 4 p.m. Eastern, Thursdays at 1 p.m. Eastern. And we need to do an after dark, which we're going to have next week. So you guys are the first to hear about it. Next Thursday, I don't have the exact time, but it's probably going to be something like 6 p.m. Eastern, maybe 7 p.m. Eastern. We're bringing, I've been working for the last few months with a partner to basically give you a much better solution for visualizing data. So today's topic is all about Encompass plugins and better ways to visualize data. So I want to speak to that. So the way that this works here on the community with live events, for those that are here, you should have the ability to chat. If you do that, I'll see it pop up over here. So I'll just say hello to everyone. And so you can do a chat thing like you normally used to doing. You can chat with everybody. And like I said, if you want to come onto the stage because you want to either ask a question or give an answer or something like that, just give me a heads up and I'll invite you as a speaker. It's really easy for me to do that. And I can add you to it. If you ever want to do, and for these kinds of things, if you ever want to come on here and do a presentation for others, so like, is Jody on here today? So, oh, Jody, yeah. So like Jody, like I've said to Jody before, like Jody, you do phenomenal Power BI stuff, which I think is amazing. So for those companies that are leveraging Power BI, get over to Jody's website, and he just updated a whole bunch of stuff, which again, for me is amazing because I can't do that. I don't know how he does it, but he does it. So thank you very much for always sharing that, Jody. I know a lot of people appreciate it. And for anybody else, like we've got Elena in here from Lodestar. Lodestar does a lot of really cool stuff with fees. They're the only company, like if you're ever in the market for bringing in third-party fees, you got to go, you're welcome, Jody. You got to go and reach out over to Lodestar. And ask them. They've got a free version and a paid version, but I'm always telling people start with free, and stop doing stuff on your own, or writing business rules or anything else. Especially if you're involved with more than one title provider, which I'm pretty sure everybody is. So anyway, so today I wanted to. So first of all, like everything else, if anyone has any questions at all about anything in Encompass, anything in the market, anything education, ask away on chat, and the ask away. So Elena, you're getting called out. Do you want to come on stage and talk about whatever it is Lube is talking about, or Lube, do you want to come on and ask Elena? We want to try it out. Elena, I'm going to invite you on. You're on the spot. How's that? Let's get you up here. Invite speaker. Cool. So, Elena, you should be invited on there. Anyway, so while we're doing this and getting technology, Here we
There
go.
we go. You have to excuse my casual attire. I was not expecting to be on camera.
Well, you're obviously wearing Purple Haze. Taylor Swift is your fave. So
Yeah, this is it's a beer company that's local to us in Philly that does a charity program for Children's Hospital of Philadelphia every year. So my husband and I always support them.
Awesome. My husband's a musician, in case anybody didn't know.
Yeah. So Luba, would you mind just dropping in the chat a little bit more about what fee updates you're looking for? Oh, when it will be automated.
Yeah. Automated.
And you don't have to do like the push out in the additional services tab. Okay. So we are currently building to the new Encompass EPC. And the new, we have
Encompass Partner Connect, for those that don't know what EPC
Partner
is.
Connect, yeah. And we do already have Encompass API integrations, so you can use our service already in LO Connect. You just have to let us know if you're a paid customer. And if you're a non-paid customer, we are currently just in the SDK integration in the standard Encompass additional partners tab. Yes, you are, Luba. So if you need LO Connect, just let us know. We can get you set up with that. Just email support and we'll get you set up on that. But for the fully transparent, like automated, that would be through Partner Connect. And we are anticipating there may be some coding on your side once that is live, depending on how Encompass.
I saw you guys on Partner Connect drop down this morning. So
yeah, we're there.
You're there. I saw that and I was like, whoa, that's awesome. So yes. For anybody watching this on replay, again, Lodestar's out of Philadelphia and they do great stuff. And Elena's part of the community, and we just literally had a meeting earlier today. And we're going to be adding in some more content and teaching us all about fees that we never knew or heard of before. I think you're going to quiz us, aren't you, Elena? Is that what the deal is?
If anyone ever wants to be quizzed, we've got lots of questions, and normally we did a few trivia at the Simple Nexus user group, and we thought everyone was going to know the answers, and we were proved very wrong.
Yeah, we got to get some of those quizzes. I think the community here could prove you that we're smarter than the snub group. How's that?
I like it.
Any other questions for Elena while we have her on the spot? Thank you for playing along here, Elena.
Of course.
If you do, wait, Rick is typing a question. So maybe this is about you. Maybe this is about your sweatshirt. We don't know.
You know, who knows?
So was it hard to join? Because I've never joined. So
yeah, it's very hard to join. Oh no, it wasn't. It just pops up on your screen. You just have to allow your microphone and
so throw so do me a favor, Elena, drop a link and for how to sign up or find out more about it. Rick's going to check it out and make sure if anybody's watching this on replay, make sure that you tell Elena and the gang that you heard us through the community, because there it is. That looks really nice.
Yeah, so we have, I dropped a link in the chat, but I don't know if the chat pulls up in the post, but the one I just dropped is the full version. So that's the full version demo. And then we also have the free to use version here. And one thing to note that Larry has pointed out in the past as well is we do automatically write with our free version to line 1 in the SSPL. So just make sure that line is free. And there is a full mapping guide as well in the user sign up. So that can be really helpful if you're using the free tool. We can't change any of the customization there. It is something, title agents sponsor the free version. So we do have to put them in your SSPL, but just so you know, it does always go there.
If anybody ever gets stuck, just hit me up in the community. I'll tell you what to do. It's pretty easy to create an SSPL with an open line there. So cool.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys, and thank you, Larry, for having me on. I just wanted to see what happens during these sessions.
It was like a rave. We just jumped on stage and there we go.
Exactly.
Cool. Okay. Hey, thanks, Elena. So on the topic of SDK API, all this stuff, I really want to talk about something that is important to me, and it has to do with education, and it has to do with understanding coding. Because like I've said before a bajillion times, I am not the first person you're going to come to for advanced coding, plugins, API tech. That's just not what I do. What I do very well is to uncover how to learn things and how to teach things. And so a few weeks ago, I went to Kenzie May, I went to Lender Toolkit, I went to Awesome Technologies, I went to Matchbox, and I said, hey gang, I need a non-modal plugin, a non-modal window pop-out plugin? Do you have it? Because some of these companies will bake it into their other tech and sell it. And so I just wanted this little piece because I want you to be able to, on a custom input form, call out like the VOL or VOR form. It's so simple, but it's so meaningful to be able to have your ops team or your sales team pop open the VOR and let it just sit over there on your other screen while you're still working in the file, just like you do with the e-folder. When the e-folder pops open, that's called non-modal. It's a Windows function. It's got nothing to do with Encompass. It's a Windows function. So when it was discovered, when I discovered that, no, there isn't anything for sale, I'm like, okay. So I reached out to a friend who asked not to be named because they are on a different assignment. And so I reached out to him because he knows his stuff, and literally got back to me. They got back to me in just like a day, and they're like, here you go. And so there's an entire course built that I'm going to be teaching and sharing here. We're actually recording the training tomorrow on the 7th. And so the goal is to get this out to everybody in the world here over the next week or so with a handbook to follow along. But it basically teaches you the innards of what a plugin looks like. It teaches you to understand the basic concepts of C#. And guys, I'm telling you right now, because I just went through it last week in the course of about 90 minutes. Yes, it's different. No, it's not complicated. Yes, you have to learn a couple of new things. But if you've ever written a business rule in Encompass, and then you've written a business rule in Input Form Builder, so you understand the differences in context, it's not hard. It's really not hard. But you have to understand where to get things. There are unsupported libraries that ICE really doesn't really want you to use if you're going to use it for business. For those that grabbed the community plugin that was out there that's now since been pulled down, it uses unsupported libraries, and it was breaking people's Encompass. Of course, you call ICE, and they're like, what are you using? Even when vendors and partners use unsupported libraries in their existing plugins and they break, well, what do? They support you and they fix it, and then they figure out how ICE changed something, which is why, again, the goal is to get the API, because in API, ICE can review the technology to make sure that it's in alignment with what they're doing so that nothing breaks. That's the reality. So what it does is it actually, the goal is to teach you what's happening, and you can actually create logging that you can see in your JIT log, so you can understand what code is happening. Kind of like when we're writing a business rule and we don't really know if Encompass is getting to line 12 or 15, so you put a little message box, and it pops out for you. You can do the same thing in a plugin. So yeah, Luba, we literally go through the whole project. You have the code, you're writing the code, you're grabbing what you need from where you need it, and then you're compiling it, and you're building it, and then you're putting it into your Encompass. Put it into your test, of course. And because as soon as you load any plugin to any environment, it's immediate for everybody. But I put it into I built it, I put it into mine. Again, it's the same technology that if you have a third party's like Input Form pop out plugin, uses the same libraries, uses the same tech. So if you're used to always wishing that you could do a pop out of any custom input form, many tools you can do this with, or certainly again like your VOX forms. That's the purpose of the non-modal pop out. As far as utility, the value is in the education. So the point is, I wanted to create something that exposes you to what's really going on, because I feel like it's a club. If you don't know somebody in the club, then you never really get to understand how plugins work. That's what this is going to do. But yeah, it's got all the resources there. Visual Studio community is free. So you don't need to go worry about your IT team freaking out because you need to purchase Visual Studio. You don't. Visual Studio community is free. And ultimately, it helps you learn if you're maybe want to go down this path of learning more about coding for plugins. And if not, at the very least, you've got this cool little plugin that, again, I want to emphasize that ICE does not want you to use things that could ultimately break your Encompass. I get that, and I respect that. But at the same breath, you can't do things in Encompass with the current SDK. That you always have to build an API. Like that's just not real. So, if desktop ever goes away and SDKs ever deprecate, whatever. Again, this is about education. This is not about purchasing a tool. So, I want to make sure that we talked about, the plugin concept, because earlier last month, I announced a partnership with Awesome Technologies Inc., bringing all of their plugins, API and SDK based, into affordability for everybody. And so now this is the next progression. Let's start teaching people about plugins. So Jody asks, if you ever want more SDK, as some examples can be used, how to look. Not sure if they're updated, but still found a reference. Yeah. So, right. And so if you go to that, the challenge with that file in the SDK is it doesn't really give you much more than what you see. And so what I did to test this out was I had a client who hired somebody new, and I'm training him to be a master of Encompass. And he's got a programming background, and he's never worked in Windows. He's only worked in Linux. And so I brought him into Encompass, obviously, and he wanted to build something because that's his background. And so I had him go through the SDK, get Developer Connect credentials and all that stuff. And he literally got stuck. I tasked him with building a non-modal pop-out. And he could get to a lot of stuff, but he couldn't go fetch the forms. And the reason why is because some of this stuff that's built into the SDK is undocumented. And ICE knows it, which is why we're having this conversation. And so there's a lot in that file. Jody, thanks very much for pointing that out to everybody, but it's not going to give you everything that you need. So when you look at, like, again, what all these providers have in terms of plugins, if you could actually see their code, you would, which you can't because it's protected, but if you could crack it open and see it, you'd see lots of calls to different DLLs, dynamic libraries, within the Encompass platform that, again, are something that ICE doesn't always want you to use, because when they make a change, it could literally break your company if you're relying upon this. So it's always best, until you become an expert or very proficient at anything, it's always best to lean on an Encompass partner for a piece of technology that your business critically relies upon. But while you're doing that, I also want you to learn how to do these things so you're not always having to buy somebody for the proverbial fish. My attitude is I want you to learn how to fish. It's how I've always been. It's how I'll always continue to be. And that's why this community exists. So, if I'll use Lodestar because I got Elena's gift there in my eyesight. But, if there was an API for a company and you don't like the way that Lodestar's technology is working, but you want to hit the API because you want to do something custom that they're not really doing yet, that's the beauty of being able to build some piece of technology. And if you've always wondered how it worked, or if it's something you're interested in doing and pursuing, this is a good place to start. And I don't know if Lodestar has an API, but that's probably what Elena's telling me. I'm just suggesting that if there is an API, okay, good. So you do have an API, so perfect. So that's the first topic on plugins and what I wanted to really get across. Any questions? Anybody want to talk about it? Comments? I know, Libby, you had some questions. Anybody else have any questions out of the participants that are here today? If you do, let me know. I'll bring you up on stage if you want, or you can chat if you don't want. If you want to do that. So, the next thing that was on my list, if nobody had anything else, was better ways to visualize data. And so, like I said earlier, huge shout outs and huge kudos to Jody. Jody took it upon himself to really help others with better ways and easier ways to manage Power BI. And I think all of that's great. I had a great conversation yesterday with somebody who's doing some really cool stuff where they were scratching their own itch because they were using Access, and they actually found a free Microsoft way to host that data onto a website they're building, and they're actually working to turn it into a product. And it looks really cool. Like, it's phenomenal. Like, they've been working on this for a while, and she showed me how it works and what it looks like. And I think I really think that's the core of what's going on. So look for the announcement. I'm waiting for one more piece of information before I make the whole thing public. But basically, if anyone's, and Jody, I know you're going to hate me for this, and I'm not throwing shade at Power BI. You know I'm not. But if anybody's watching this and you're a Power BI company and you're tired of the money to get everybody a user account, I'm sorry, Jody. Or you don't have a Power BI person and you don't want to call Jody because, whatever, or you just don't have the resources to support it. So basically, I worked with a partner, an existing ICE partner, to basically take one of their products. It's a visualizer product, and basically rebrand it and make it in the context for executive team, sales team, underwriting team, processing team, and third parties. So the ability to basically take important critical data and visualize it is everything. Like it's not a new concept. Understanding data is everything, but to be able to visualize it is critically important. And also do some predictive analytics. So again, just before this call, I'm talking with one of Mortgage Workflow Partners' clients, and we're helping them go through and rebuild a lot of things. And one of the pieces with one of the managers is he's going in and he's actually realizing that they're wasting so much time on a certain section of borrowers that always end up getting declined. And so finding that data and doing some predictive analytics on that data is everything. And a lot of times, I don't know how you are, but I can spot a picture easier than I can a set of data. Not everybody's the same. One of my daughters can spot like patterns in data like this. She's really, really sharp. And so pictures aren't necessarily, comparisons aren't her thing. I can spot a difference in a picture or a trend in a picture. Again, everybody's different. So predictive analytics, being able to visualize your data in a meaningful way is important. I'm just curious, for those that are here, what are some of the things that, for those that are either using visualizers or wish they did have a way to visualize data into an infographic or an interpretation that's not supported by native Encompass, whether it's a dashboard, a pipeline, or a report? What are some of the things you guys are typically looking for? Like for me, it's like number of loans that have titles ordered not back, or number of loans left to close this month with more than 5 conditions. Like, these are the kinds of things that are more analytical. And then of course you get into like the bigger picture, like loan officer stuff, and like pull through trends in post-closing conditions, right? So that's a good one, Luba. Like, I love post-closing because it always tells me what's going on in the operations. So trends meaning like how many conditions, maybe from which investor, or maybe even for which loan product, or maybe even from which lead source. Those are all ways to interpret. Is that what you mean, Luba? Like those kinds of things? Yeah, all that, right? So the ability to create that or have it created for you is important, and it's hard. Jody, I'm just curious, how long have you been working on Power BI? Like, I think you might have told me, and if you have, I apologize, I've forgotten. But I know it's been longer than a couple days. At least a couple days. 2018, so 5 years. So I know you love it, right? And so here's the passion, and that's why I love what you bring to everybody. Like, you're passionate about Power BI. You put it in a way that's easy to focus on and make sense, and that's great. And I know everybody who pays attention to what you're doing really appreciates it. So if you haven't seen the link, and Jody, do me a favor. I'm going to do it on your post, but in the future posts, do hashtag Power BI. And I'll do that as a highlighted tag in the community. And that way, if anybody's ever looking in the highlighted tags, they'll see Power BI, and they'll get to all your posts. It's pretty cool. It's a cool thing within the community to do the highlighted hashtags. Some other things that are important on the visualizers. I don't know if you guys agree, but velocity meters and balance meters. So in other words, again, I always use end of the month for operations and the beginning of the month for sales. So what happens in sales, if you're in sales, you know what I'm talking about. If you're not, here's what happens. So in sales, it's July 6th. So what's happening in the last couple of days is that the salespeople and the sales team is always like, what are you projecting to close this month? And part of that are loans that are currently in pipeline, and part of that is leads that they've been maturing over a certain period of time. And so there's always this thing that happens with, well, what do you think you're going to close, Larry? And the salesperson will say, oh, I think I'm going to close whatever, 10 loans. And you're like, great, which 10? And they'll say, oh, well, there's 3 in process, and then there's like 7 that are coming in any day now. And so with these velocity meters, with predictive analytics, you can actually see, well, how many leads did we receive, and when did we get them, and what's their staging? And all this information is in Encompass. Now, if you're not using Encompass, if you're using another platform to do all that other work, and that platform doesn't have the ability to get metrics out, that sucks. I'm sorry for you. And Jody would have the same problem in Power BI, because if the data is not in your system of record, you can't get at the data, so therefore you can't make judgments. So you got to get everything into Encompass. But the point is that with sales, you can trash in, trash out. Absolutely, Jody. So the idea is with velocity meters, you can tell what's really real. And then the same thing with operations. When operations is in operations, usually around the 10th-ish of the month, ops managers and executives will start looking at, well, what are we closing this month? And it's based on everybody's intuition. Sometimes it's metrics. A lot of times it's intuition. And so what I'm looking to do is change the paradigm shift to make this visualization of data more attainable for everyone and more affordable and more insightful. And then also give you the ability to, again, if you've got third-party real estate agents or builders or somebody that you don't want to get into Encompass, the ability to share this information on the web in a secure, organized way. So Luba says, Blend is able to tell how many loans we send a link to the borrower and how many borrowers click on the link, how many start the app, and how many complete the app. Yeah, absolutely, Luba. So if you can visualize that data, what you really want to see is which borrowers click the link. What are some attributes? Oh yeah, sorry. So if you can't get that from Blend, yeah, that sucks. It really, really sucks. Depending on how you deliver the links. And so as an example, if you're using like a CRM, I'll use Salesforce as an example. You could do a redirect link so you can actually see which people, you can track stuff from the metrics on the back end. That's on a CRM side. I've done that before. But yeah, Luba, all that stuff is all watching borrowers and how they behave, and being able to do that. So they're using apply now buttons in emails. As long as the apply now, well, first of all, the apply now button is just a link. And to Elena's point, Google tracking analytics is great, but you've got to be able to tag that button in the email with the specific analytics related back to your CRM, because if the software, the internet can't tell which borrower clicked the button, then there's no way to pull the analytics back to the borrower. And if you can't link it to the borrower, then you can't tell all the other stuff that you need to be able to see to make the conversation meaningful. I know it's a lot because this is what I do. This is what we do at Mortgage Workflow Partners. We tie this best ways to use your technology. And if you're not using the best technology, we talk and we guide you through on what to use. So Jody said, nice thing with most BI tools is that you can pull multiple data sources in as long as you have a new. Yeah. So to Jody's point, if you've got the ability to pull the data into a centralized repository, then that's great. And that is true. Like with Power BI, because you can load in different references of libraries for the sources, if it's not in Encompass, you're not bound. This other visualizer tool is exclusively out of Encompass. So, if you're a kind of company that's using Power BI and you're using multiple sources of information outside of Encompass, the visualizer tool that I'm going to be talking about next week is not going to be for you. But that's okay. It's not going to be for everybody. It can't be everything to everyone. So anyway, that's my vibe on better ways to visualize. I want to make sure that, as whatever your role is, if a lot of folks on here are Encompass admins, I want you to always be thinking about your company as your company, from top to bottom, side to side, inside out. I want you to think about what can you do to help your company make more money. You leverage Encompass in a much more comprehensive way, because it's expensive, and you should be able to just squeeze every penny out of that, and that's what we help you do. That's what I help you do, in particular. So we're at the end of our time, because I do like to keep these to 30 minutes. Any final questions? Anybody want to come on here and does your visualizing tool take into account username changes? Username changes. Sometimes if you're pulling data from loans, you have to. Oh, you mean like who's a loan officer kind of a thing? Yeah. So what Jody's talking about is, if you've got one loan, but the partner, the file contact on that loan changes from Larry to John to Sue to Betsy back to John, how many loans do you see? And the answer would be one. Depending on your parameters, who owned that loan at that parameter time, it's only one loan. So there's a loan GUID in there, and that's what it really ties to. Which visualizer it shows up on is based upon the loan data at that point. But yeah, if you go back and you look at the analytics of that loan record based upon who was in the role at that prior time, it would pull in there. I think that's your question, Jody. I don't know. We got to make more time for your questions. Yeah, Luba, thanks for coming. I don't blame you. I know, listen, we're going to John Doe said he's changing them. Yeah. So again, in the parameters, it would address that, but we'll get into that. I want you to come, Jody, to the event next week when it's announced, and I want you to pick it apart, and I want you to make it better. Make me a promise. For everybody else, my name is Larry Bailey, Mortgage Workflow Partners. Thanks very much for spending time with me on the community every Tuesday and Thursday. Tuesdays at 4 p.m., Thursdays at 1 p.m. Look for Workflow Partners After Dark. Get with Lodestar. Get with Jody for Power BI. And Luba, good luck with Blend. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll see you. Take care.